Let's speak to Javid in Birmingham and Cordon. Hello, Javid.
Hi, good afternoon, Nihal.
What would you like to say to Kenan?
Yeah, basically I think that, Rushdie was basically testing the waters to see the Muslim reaction. And soon, he got the indication that obviously that, you cannot go down that avenue. Because, Prophet Muhammad is very, very sacred to the Muslims. And, basically, he should have had more responsibility and done more research before he wrote that book. You cannot criticize religious personalities and then say that there's not going to be no reaction, because that's exactly what's happened.
But Javid, did the Muslim community play into the hands of everybody who was anti-Islamic to begin with by that reaction? I mean, Hitler burnt books. You can't go around burning books, can you?
No, I think you're absolutely right. But the thing is, right, that I think more research should have gone into that. And it's not just a Muslim thing. If you remember the Basti play in Birmingham, that had the same reaction from the Sikh community.
Yes.
So this should be a signal to the people who are secular that certain things you just cannot do and get away with.
All right, Kenan.
The Besti is quite interesting if you compare that to the Satanic Verses. Remember, Besti was written by a playwright who herself was Sikh. She was debating, discussing issues within the Sikh community that were very important, in particular treatment of women within the Sikh community, and certain elements. Only certain elements within the Sikh community, the so-called community leaders and their supporters, said, if you put this on, we will cause mayhem, we will attack the theatre. So what happens is that what we often call an offence to a community is actually a debate within that community. And by only taking one side, in this case, the more reactionary, the more conservative side, as somehow representing the voice of that community, what you do is you silence the progressive, important voices within that community.
That's not progressive. I'm sorry.
What's not progressive? What's not progressive about standing up for women's rights?
That is hurting people's feelings. There are certain subjects that you cannot use religion and say this is women's rights. Obviously, the Sikhs felt very, very, something like, really rattled a cage, and they had to come out and protest. Because obviously, people like yourselves would not.
But what about Javid? Yeah, but Javid, what about when the truth hurts? What about when something is put forward that people just don't like? And a few community leaders, and I know, Javid, that within all religious communities there are community leaders that really aren't really worth their weight in paper, let alone anything else. And you, I'm sure, agree that there are some community leaders who are not fit for purpose. But what they're good at is winding everybody up.
No, Nihal, I understand that. But if you ask, right, if you've done your research and ask most of the Muslims or Sikhs or for that
matter... How are you going to ask most of them? How are you going to... There are a billion Muslims in the world.
Finish what I'm saying, Nihal.
Yeah, go on.
Finish what I'm saying, please, yeah?
Go on.
Look, if you do your research and ask these people, right, what they think about the religious personalities, yeah, you will get majority of the people, they respect and love people like Prophet Muhammad or Guru Nanak Sahib Ji or in Hinduism, no matter which religion. Now the problem is, right, people like Ken, they are here to cause anarchy. And this is what's going to happen. You're going to get stability, you're going to get intolerance.
That's a compliment, by the way, to Ken.
I am telling you, this is what's happened, and that's what's going to happen until, right, there is a law to stop these people, because these people
maybe the anarchists can speak here. Maybe the anarchists can. Let me ask you this question. In Holland, you've heard of Geert Wilders, the Dutch politician. He wants to ban the Quran in Holland on the grounds that it is offensive to Dutch culture, to Christianity, and so on. Now, if the majority of Dutch people think that you should ban the Quran because it is offensive, do you think that it should be allowed to?
Have they done the research yet?
No, I'm not asking a question. If the majority... No, hold on.
Javid, wait there a second.
It's a straightforward question.
Yeah, Kenan's point...
If the majority of Dutch people think that the Quran should be banned, do you think it should be banned?
Okay, Javid, Kenan's point is that if a majority of people feel that something is offensive in the same way that you're saying the majority of Muslims felt Satanic Verses was offensive, then you just have to go with that decision. Now... how many of those people that protested against the satanic verses actually bothered to read it? In the same way that how many Dutch people, if the majority of them did vote to ban the Quran, would have actually sat down and read the Quran? Probably very few.
Look, what I'm saying to you, Nihal, right, is that freedom of speech has to have responsibility. Otherwise, you just...
But what about the mob? But what about the mob, Javed? What about the mob mentality?
Yes,
should that dictate to us how we live our lives?
This is what's creating the mob mentality. Now, nobody would like me to go down the road and swear at somebody's parents. Obviously, I'll get a smack in the mouth. Now, this is the same thing with religion. Religion is very sacred to people. So if you really are a responsible person, then you know there are certain things that you cannot, or certain avenues you cannot go down. And if you're going to go down that way, you're going to cause anarchy, you're going to cause hurt. If you want to do that, then by all means go ahead and do whatever you want.
But it's precisely because religious leaders are able to say there are certain roads you cannot go down, there are certain things you cannot challenge, there are certain views you cannot attack, that they're able to retain their power. It's a question of power here. And the most vulnerable sections of Muslim communities or other communities, those like women, for instance, who are, or gays, who are often discriminated against because of religious laws, it's the most vulnerable sections who whose voices are never heard in these debates.
Okay, let's bring Ash in the Midlands in. Javed, stay with us. Ash, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Neil.
What would you like to say?
Well, I think I'm going to agree with your guest that we should be allowed to express our opinion, and religion shouldn't be sacrosanct. You know, it shouldn't have any safeguards, and I think it's a healthy thing for the reasons your guest has given, and particularly, you know, we live in a liberal society, and I think the acid test would be, I mean, a lot of the religions that we've brought to this country, I mean, I'm a Hindu, I think the acid test is if a Life of Brian type of movie was made again about any of the faiths we brought here, Islam, Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism.
But Ash, when an Italian fashion designer decided to put pictures of Hindu deities on underwear, Hindus were up in arms about that, weren't they?
Well, it particularly didn't bother me. I'm sure it's not in good taste, but again, I have to defend that person's artistic freedom to use images how he feels or she feels fit. Even
if those images are adored by millions, or in the case of Hindu images, 1 billion people?
Well, I think so, because there was M.F. Hussain in India, the greatest living artist we have, who drew pictures of some of the deities, and he got in a bit of trouble, and I actually defended it at the time in the debate you had, that he had the right to...
Well, could people argue, Ash, could people argue that you're not a proper Hindu?
Well, that's... They could, but at the end of the day, it's not a matter of faith, this is a matter of expressing one's freedom and expression. And the thing is, if someone is so strong in their faith, I think someone's artistic belief or poetry or writings should not destabilize them. And in fact, you even get this suppression within religion. And I see that, and in some sense, you know, I think, in some sense, in this country, we should fight for these rights of freedom of expression. It's so important, and you know, wars have been fought about this. And there's ongoing conflicts all over the world, and there's implications about freedom of expression there. Okay,
stop there for a second. I just want to bring Kenan back in. Ash, stay with us, Kenan.
I could not agree more with that, and it's worth adding that such freedom of expression is important, not just for secularists, but for people of faith too, because people of faith should have the right to express their views as openly as possible. A couple of years ago, Iqbal Sakrani, who was then the General Secretary of the Council of Mosques, he was on Radio 4, and he made some derogatory comments about gays. And the next day, the police were around, Scotland Yard were around, investigating whether he could be arrested under hate speech laws. Now, it seems to me that free speech should allow Salman Rushdie to publish the satanic verses. It should also allow Iqbal Sakrani to make derogatory comments about gays if he so wishes. And it's just ludicrous that either of them get stopped in the name of respect or tolerance. If we want to live in a multicultural society, You have to pay the price of a multicultural society.
What about a civilised society? Is it not civilised on the basest possible level to just be polite to each other and not offend for the sake of offending, and also not... There's a difference between entering into a dialogue and uttering offensive comments, isn't there?
There is, and I agree, politeness is good. Though I think it's also an overrated virtue. I think there are lots of times when one should be impolite, when one should be angry, when one should be use invective of all kind. So while polite debate and rational debate is good, I don't think we should push it so far as to say that only polite debate or only rational debate should be allowed.
Absolutely. Layla has emailed in, say, I completely agree with your guest. I found it very frustrating to listen to your discussion, as you clearly don't seem to understand, that's me, the value of free speech at all. There is no reason whatsoever that religious views should be protected from criticism. If a worldview is right, it should be able to stand up to criticism anyway. You suggesting that people need to ask permission from religious scholars before they dare to express a view religious people might take offence to is insulting and ridiculous. Well, Layla, I disagree with that. I think that there's nothing insulting and ridiculous about finding out both sides of an argument before you open your mouth.
Can I just say I agree with it totally?
Yes, I'm sure you almost certainly would, and I wouldn't get a prize for thinking that you did agree with that, Layla. But you and I could have that discussion another day. Natalie has said, I find the response to the extreme, in inverted commas, proper Muslims offensive, and I'm sure Salman Rushdie also did. The argument for temperance cannot be made offensively. Otherwise, you are effectively perpetrating the very thing you are against. By ordering a fatwa, you are surely invoking your own right for freedom of speech. Great show. T said, the Prophet Muhammad is the most important figure in a Muslim's life, and you're saying it is okay to badmouth a person that Muslims define most important than their own mothers. This is the reason why Muslims turn to terrorism. I think you should sit down and think about what you say, because the outcome can be a lot worse than what you might think as harmless. Salma in Cambridge has said, I'm offended by this man. Number one, a religion or not should deliberately... no one of religion or not should deliberately set out to offend and then be able to pass it off as their right. No right comes without responsibility. This man demonstrates what is wrong with irresponsible people out to boost themselves through controversy. Well, let us get back to the book itself and what you're going to be talking about, because you have an issue with multiculturalism, don't you, as such? Let's just bring it back to what you'll be talking about. And you know, you're not alone in that. Trevor Phillips himself believes that as well.
Well, I'm not sure Trevor Phillips believes what I believe. I think the problem with multiculturalism, or the problem with the way we talk about multiculturalism, is that we confuse two different things. One is diversity as lived experience, which is wonderful. I mean, Britain today is a much better place because of mass immigration. And it's much more open, much more vibrant, much more cosmopolitan than it was half a century ago. But multiculturalism has also come to mean a political process by which different groups are put into different ethnic or faith boxes. You know, you are Hindu, you are Sikh, you are Muslim, you are black, and so on. And that public policy and funding is allocated according to the box to which you belong. That's the problem. So I'm all for diversity, but I'm opposed to multiculturalism as a political process.
Right, okay. Loads of texts and emails, as you can imagine, are coming in. Keep them coming in. 81869 is the text number. Whatever happened to freedom of speech, says Sonny? Choice of opinion. As long as you don't enforce your views upon someone else, we are free to speak what we like. There was a recent documentary on BBC called Who Made Christianity, talking about how Christianity is man-made. Didn't that offend Christians? So just because Islam is a sensitive topic now doesn't mean we can debate it or have to consult or ask for permission to talk about it. For example, how would a conspiracy theorist debate his work if he had to go and ask someone such as the US government, FBI or CIA for permission in fear of offending them? G said, Nihal, maturity demands that you win whatever you believe in by argument and not by threat. Galileo was gagged when he claimed the earth was round. Do we need to gag a different opinion? You know the answer. Deborah Batra said, I'm absolutely amazed by the arguments of your host, and I do agree with him too. I do believe that progress of humankind is possible only if we can challenge our beliefs. Otherwise, how can we know that our beliefs are concurrent with our present-day knowledge? E.g., you are holding the debate to sharpen up our understanding or beliefs, isn't it? All right, thanks for such a nice topic today.